I have a question for you.
Ooh, I like questions.
Do you?
Yeah.
Or do you like answering questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with answering. Hit me with it.
Yeah, so do you know Wikipedia's definition of a habit?
Oh, no. Well, school me.
A habit is a routine of behavior that is repeated regularly and tends to occur subconsciously.
Ah.
I don't think I knew that a habit occurs subconsciously. I thought you had to kind of like consciously think about it.
No. I think I did kind of know that. I think I wrote in my show notes. What did I say? I said it's something you do without thinking. You know, something you do when you're on autopilot.
It's interesting. So now it might change how I view like what are actually habits for me and what aren't habits.
Ooh.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Let's ponder.
Let's go.
This is Mikel-Claire.
And this is Trey.
And we are the couple of entrepreneurs. We're here to share with you our journey of successes and setbacks as we enter the world of entrepreneurship now that we no longer have 9-to-5s due to the new normal of the world and the pandemic.
Join us as we race the clock to start earning money, gain consistency, and overcome self-doubts and uncertainty as we search for our voices and obtain personal and financial growth.
So do you feel forming habits is important?
Oh, yeah. I think it's essential, especially if it's something that you want to accomplish. It's much easier to accomplish something if you already have the habits that are required to get it done.
And that would be, you're talking about like good habits, right? Because there are tons of bad habits that I have that don't help me on my journey.
Yeah, of course. It would have to be good habits towards whatever your goal is going to be. I mean, you're not the only one. All of us here have like some really, really bad habits. Matter of fact, you kind of getting on me just like 5 minutes ago about my habit of always flossing. I have this thing where after I eat, pretty much after any meal, I have to floss. It's just this thing. And I've been doing it for so long, I don't even think about it anymore. I eat and then I go grab some floss.
It's not the flossing part. It's the having the floss stick hang out your mouth for the 30 minutes after you finish flossing part.
Hey, well, some people chew on toothpicks. I chew on floss.
So the flossing is the good habit. The chewing on the floss for 30 minutes after is the bad habit.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a little bit of a tangent. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled program.
Yeah, well, I thought of something that was kind of interesting. I remember I was reading Brain Think. I think that was the name of it. That's probably wrong. Don't quote me on that. But anyways, I do remember reading something about them talking about the nature of habits and how that works, like physiologically, how there's certain paths that your brain creates electrical charges through in order to find the most efficient paths in order to get what you need. So let's take, for instance, if you're just walking down the street and you're humming a song and you go to your friend's house every single day, you kind of just go there on autopilot without even thinking. You don't have to consciously think about these things because it's just something you've done over and over and over again. Well, if you got these electrical paths in your brain that's being made to make it easier, it takes a certain amount of time in order to get those grooves. It's kind of like a path that you see on a nature trail. You know, the paths that's been like totally beaten down. Those are like how your brain kind of like talks and creates habits. Habits are those paths. And if you want to create new ones, they're difficult because you have to like trudge through the brush and you have to keep walking through that same piece of brush until you beat the weeds down, then until you beat the grass down, until you get down to the dirt where the path is. And then that's when you get a habit. All right. It's just kind of, sometimes it helps to think about how the biology of it works.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for that, Dr. Murphy.
My thesis will be out in February.
It was just out right now. So, now that we know the biological aspects of habits,
okay,
what's your take on like good habits versus talent? So it's kind of like almost like a nurture versus nature, but in regard to like talent versus habit.
I think the best way to kind of look at that is the tale of Steph Curry and Shaquille O'Neal. On one hand, you have Shaquille O'Neal, 7 feet, 300 plus pounds, arguably the most dominant basketball player of all time. Pretty much all of that God-given. You can't teach 7 feet tall. You can't really teach 300 pounds. And he's got rings, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And then on the other side, you have Steph Curry, who's also a very gifted basketball player. But he's not 7 feet tall. He's not 300 pounds. It's not really like a God-given kind of talent that he has. But what he does have is a good work ethic that's based in habits. And those habits are his dribbling skills that you've seen, his dribbling camps. He's had master classes that you'll see on internet where he teaches you how to dribble, and these things that he does every single day, every day. With his left hand, with his right hand, around cones, backwards, between his legs, you name it, he's got that dribbling down. The next thing, and what he's most known for, is his three-point shot, and his just deadly accurate from pretty much anywhere on the floor up to half court for the most part. The difference between these two people is Shaq, who has all of this God-given talent through height and weight and just physical dominance. He's just talented enough because that's just what was given to him from the word go. And then you have Steph Curry, who had to develop habits. He had to develop a work ethic. He had to dribble every day. He had to take hundreds, if not thousands of shots every single day. Steph Curry really, truly made himself. He's only 6'3", which isn't super tall in the league, but he's probably the coldest assassin, coldest shooter, coldest dribbler the league has seen, and that's why he'll be a Hall of Famer. Why? Because he made good habits. Shaq, on the other hand, can barely shoot a free throw. He's got all that natural ability to dunk, dominate, throw people around, but one of the most fundamental things in basketball he struggles with, which is shooting free throws. And why is that? Because he didn't develop the habits in order to consistently hit a free throw shot. Both of them are going to the Hall of Fame. Both of them have championships. But both of them did it from totally different aspects.
I agree with that to an extent. But Shaquille, even though he's got the height and weight naturally, in order for him to even make it to the NBA, he had to have some good habits that he developed along the way. Not every 7+ foot person who's over 250 is going to automatically just walk on the court and make it in the NBA. I think that there's something that's also behind that as far as his habits are concerned for him to get to that level professionally. Yeah.
I mean, it's not an absolute sum zero, but I promise you, Shaq, if you took his skill set and you made him 6'5", 220 pounds, he's not going to the Hall of Fame. He's not getting multiple rings. It's just not happening. Now, here's an interesting thing. If Steph Curry was 7 feet tall, 300 plus pounds, but he had the same work ethic, same dribbling that he's always done, same shooting, he would have that natural ability and an additional asset that Shaq probably wouldn't, just because he didn't have the need to have to learn that additional skill set.
But it would have been interesting to see if Steph Curry would have even developed those habits if he would have had the innate ability. You'd never know. If people lean on their talent,
right,
are they going to go the extra mile to create habits that could push them full steam ahead into greatness?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I don't know how that would work.
It's definitely a good barstool kind of question, But then it kind of goes back to your question of habit versus talent. I think there's talented people all over the place. I don't think talent is hard to come by at all. I think you can throw a rock and hit somebody talented. But what is hard to find is good work ethic, good habits, and people that use those work ethics and good habits in order to make themselves into the person they want to be. That is extremely rare.
I agree with that. So do you think that someone with good habits gets further than people that are talented? I know you kind of mentioned with Steph Curry, because of his work ethic and his developing of habits when it comes to basketball, he's probably a greater athlete or basketball player, at least technically, than Shaquille O'Neal.
How many times have you seen somebody do something and you're like, how in the world were they successful at that? You've seen bad actors and you're like, how in the world is this bad actor up there? How are they keep getting movie after movie after movie. And more than likely the answer to that is because they've developed some type of good habit that has put them in a place to find good opportunity. Or how many times have you looked at other entrepreneurs who you know you are smarter than, who you know you have better ideas than, but yet they are finding all the success in the world? It's probably because they have good work ethic, which is based in good habits. It's a ton of talented people. You, me, the people that are listening to this podcast right now, you are more talented than a lot of the people that are already achieving what you currently want. The difference between us and our viewers and those people that have already achieved it is that they have developed the good habits that have required the work ethic in order to get what they want. While the vast majority of us, including ourselves, me and you, sit there and look at some of these people and I'm like, how in the world did you do that when you don't even have even half the skill set that I have? Well, those habits are the reason why. I mean, have you ever seen somebody and you're just like, how in the world did they do it? And just question and wonder it, like, what was the secret sauce?
Anybody who's successful, I always wonder how they do it. And like you said, people that I don't think necessarily are smarter than me or more capable than me, I question it all the time. A perfect example that I thought of while you were saying that is my dabbling in law school many moons ago. I thought to myself, because one of my friends had made it through law school, and I was like, well, she's not smarter than I am. Not saying that she's any less smart than I am, but she's not smarter than I am. And she made it. And I was like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. But then I get there and it's like a completely different story. And it's not that I thought I was any less talented than the people that were there. Okay. I mean, I was definitely a little older than the majority of them. So maybe I thought I was smarter, who knows? But I didn't develop the habits that I needed in order to finish. I do understand that it does take work ethic and habits in order to become successful at certain things. And even if you're talented, you still have to have certain habits to even get to a place of success if that's what you're looking to achieve.
Right. Yeah, I think if you're talented and you have a good work ethic, I think success is almost guaranteed. It's almost guaranteed. The only thing that you're really just waiting for when you're talented and you have good habits is just time. And then once the time comes, then you're off to like superstardom. But I guess all of this is to say you don't have to be talented in order to find success. You just need good habits. And the good habits is what forms good work ethic.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, right? Because I get, say, you want to be an artist,
right?
And you can't draw a straight line, which I mean, not all art needs to have straight lines because right. I do like some, abstract art. Mm-hmm. But if you have no ability, no artistic ability, mm-hmm. I mean, and I know you can take classes and develop habits and draw every day and mm-hmm. try to get better and better and better. You think that person could be artistically on a level of someone who has like this insanely innate creative talent?
On a long enough timeline, anything is possible. Anything on a long enough timeline. Most people die before they reach the level of a Picasso or whatever it is. When Picasso was doing art at, 12 years old, there's some people that couldn't accomplish that if they did it every day until they were 40. Mm-hmm. But if you gave that person a long enough timeline, they'd catch up. Mm-hmm. But if there's other things that can factor in as far as let's take Picasso and some other regular dude now who's just hustling on Instagram, selling sketches that he has in his notepad. Like, I want to say Picasso didn't really become like a huge major art figure until after his death. And because maybe he didn't have the good enough habits to develop a business sense in order to sell on the level that he's currently valued at now. Whereas the kid that's just scribbling on his notepad and taking pictures of it and posted on Instagram, who's now got over 100,000+ followers and decided to monetize it, is probably going to find a lot more monetary success than Picasso was at that same age. One talent is definitely higher than the other, but in terms of business, one is reaping the rewards of their talent a lot more than the other.
Well, I think it depends on what it is you're trying to get from it too, because we didn't really talk about that because, I don't know if Picasso was doing it for the money or for the love of what he was good at doing. And I get that the other person may be making more money if that's the goal. Right. But when someone is passionate about something, money might not always be the highest priority for them. But right. I get, like, in business, obviously that's right. The highest priority, and that's what we're talking about. But I just think it just depends on the person and what it is that they're trying to get from it.
So do you think that if you mimicked a person that was already successful or in a place that you've already been and mimicked them long enough that you've developed their same habits, do you think it's possible to kind of like become them?
I do in a way, but then it's hard to know exactly what somebody's habits are. Right. And there could be something that you're missing. Right. Like they could get up every day and read 10 verses of the Bible, and that's what, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm giving a very strange example, but there could be a habit in there that we don't know about. Right. That could be the key. But if we know all of their habits and they're clear about them and they're like, hey, this is what I do every day and these are all the habits that I have. And if you do mimic them, I do believe that you can achieve some degree of their success, but then there are other factors for each of us that play a part that can also determine whether or not we're successful. Like, we are Black people. Mm-hmm. If we're trying to mimic someone who happens to be a different race, we may not have the same success.
Oh, yeah.
Even if we have the exact same habits. So I think it really just depends on the situation, what the business is, what the habits are, and that type of thing. But do you think so?
I think that there is some truth to it. You may not get the exact same results, but you'll be put in a position where you may have some opportunities presented to you that are close, and then you can act on those opportunities. There's like that old saying of, fake it till you make it, or kind of be who you wish to be now. Walk that path, dress that way, talk that way, act as such, and then if you do it long enough, you will become that. Some people think that's just like being fake. Hence fake it till you make it. But do you think that there's some legitimacy in that now that we've kind of talked about habits? And if you do those things that successful people do, your brain kind of automatically puts you into an autopilot that'll push you in that direction of success.
Well, the thing is, if you are actually doing those things, then that's not faking it. That's developing the habit. So if you're saying you're doing these things and you're not, then you are just faking it and you're not going to get the success or the same results. But if you're walking in their footsteps or, doing the things that they're doing, that's not fake. That's developing and creating the habits. Okay. So for me, you're completely able to, quote unquote, fake it till you make it if you're actually doing the work.
Okay. All right.
So what are your thoughts about that? Like, do you agree with that saying, or do you think that that's something that's even productive to do?
Well, you said something that I do agree with, and that is if you're actually doing the work, you're not faking it. You're just doing what you need to do. And maybe people are looking at the term wrong. Maybe it's haters that don't understand what it takes in order to move to the next step, and they think that you're being fake or thinking that you're not being your true, genuine you. As far as what makes them comfortable as viewing you, if that makes sense. So maybe there is no such thing as fake it till you make it. I never thought about it under those terms. Maybe it's just you're trying to make a change and you're doing what's necessary in order to go on that path.
Yep, and it's all about perspective.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking all this stuff about habits. How long does it take to develop a habit?
It's a very good question, because I really think it may be dependent on the person. Okay. Because I was thinking about it, and we have these numbers that people throw out there. Right. It takes 21 days. It takes 90 days. Right. So I think that each person is different. Everybody's brain works differently. Yeah. Everybody's ability to stay consistent stays differently. So I don't think that there's like this magic number that all of a sudden it's like, ta-da, today it's subconscious. So it's hard for me to say how long I even think it takes for me to form a habit, because some habits I still haven't formed, but you have to be consistently working on them, I think, in order for it to come to fruition. Yeah. But I'm not sure what that magic number is. Do you have a magic number where you're like, behaviors become habits, your thoughts become, all that?
Absolutely. Well, there's three big ones. There's three big numbers that kind of like resonate a lot when I think about habit forming. The first one is 21 days. That's the main one that most people say you have to do something consistently for 21 days for it to become a habit. And that's the one I grew up with as a kid up until well past college. That was the magic number. If I could do 21 days, I'll be good. And then I read, I think it was The One Thing, Please don't quote me on this. But anyways, that number had changed, and there was a study that was done, and they discovered that in order to effectively get that groove in your brain that we talked about, that path, it takes 90 to 100 days. And to me, based off of my own personal life, that seemed a lot more realistic. I've done a lot of things for 21 straight days and then all of a sudden became subconscious to just doing it all the time. I mean, a good one is working out. I know I talk about working out a lot. It took longer than 21 days for it to become like, this is just what I do. It really did take 3 months. And maybe there's a difference between habit and discipline, and that might be a whole other conversation. But then there's the big one, the big number, and that was in a book called Outliers. And the magic number in that book was it takes 10,000 hours in order to become a master at anything, not just one thing or some things, but anything.
And if I remember correctly, because I actually remember you talking about this book, it's not only 10,000 hours, but isn't it like every day?
Yeah,
you have to do something
it's like
every single day, and then when you hit 10,000 hours of doing that thing every day, then you become a master.
Yeah, you are a master. I do believe that. I do think, I don't know if that number is exact, but as far as that amount of time doing something consistently, 10,000 hours, that's a lot of time. And in the examples in the book that it gave, like Bill Gates building computers in his garage, he had his 10,000 hours when he was like 17 years old, and the world looked at him as some kind of prodigy. But then you go back and look into his past and you see all the things that it took since he was building computers since he was 12 years old. And in that 5-year span of doing it every single day, he got his 10,000 hours early. Now he looks like a prodigy. The same thing can be said with the creator of Facebook. A good example that was used in the book periodically was sports. Like in the South, football is a very big thing because there's more sunshine per day than there are than say like in Maine and New York and North Dakota. And because there's more sunlight out there, it gives more opportunities to practice, which means you'll hit your 10,000 hours sooner. And the flip side is hockey, whereas in New York and Canada, there's more time to practice to get those 10,000 hours. Whatever the case, be it 21 days, 90 days, or 10,000 hours, the one thing that is true among all of them is being consistent enough so that you do things without really even thinking about it. The habits are just what you do. It's not something that you have to put a lot of thought process into in order to get it done.
Trying to take all that in here. Oh my goodness. All right. I think I may have even forgotten my question. Hold on. I had something to say about all of that. Do you think that if someone is also talented, does that lessen the time that it takes to form the habit?
I think so. I think that's the perk of being talented. I think a lot of that talent is just natural physiological ability. I think there's something about it. An example off the top of my mind is Lance Armstrong, the guy that won all of the Tour de France's and stuff. They did a study regarding like the size of his heart and his lungs. It's like they're both like really abnormally large. So that has a really big part of his talent. They looked at Michael Jordan's hands. His hands are like incredibly large, which allows him to manipulate the ball a lot easier. What was the name of the swimmer that won like 10?
Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps. There's something about with his lung capacity and his ability to process oxygen in his blood. It's completely abnormal. So I don't even know if that's necessarily something that you work towards. It's just what, you just had that roll of the dice and God was like, yeah, I'm going to just give you this. And then I think that's when like old people say a waste of talent is like, it's like a slap to God's face or whatever it is. It's like you can do something with that because you're given an edge. But I still think even with those edges, because most people, in order to become like elite at that or whatever level it is that they're going to be at, it still takes some type of habit to be consistent with it. And the person that's just naturally normal and just has naturally good habits will be the talented person every time.
Well, yeah, I was just talking about the time frame. I was just curious if you thought that someone, but you answered that for me. Thank you.
Well, we're talking all about habits and sports and stuff. Like, how does all this apply to business and entrepreneurship?
I think habits can make or break your success. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
If you have bad habits, then you can't develop the necessary skills or the regiment that you need in order to get things accomplished.
Okay.
And I know we'll talk more, about what those good habits are that you need for business.
Okay.
But you definitely need something, because if not, then we're sitting on the couch watching Narcos. I love that show, and I would like to do that this evening if possible. And so you have to have certain habits in order to be successful and stay focused. Do you think habits can affect your business?
Absolutely. I have a very bad habit of waking up later than I feel is good enough to benefit my business. I normally don't get out of the bed completely until about 7:30, 8 o'clock. That's far too late. Too much stuff can be done. I should be getting up at like closer to like 5:30 and then getting my workday up and running by like 6:30. That's an hour and a half of time per day that I lose. It doesn't seem like a lot when you think of it by itself. But if I had the habit of accumulating that hour and a half, 5 days a week, that's like, I don't know, 7.5 hours a week. And then you multiply that by 4 per month, and then it goes on. And then you see all of that lost opportunity.
It's too much math for me this late in the evening.
So that one bad habit is a production cost. It's a loss of money. It's a loss of profit. Something as simple as getting up an hour and a half early could have monumental monetary consequences.
Other than the waking up early, what are some good habits to develop in business to be successful?
I think, well, the obvious was time management. And it's not just time management in terms of waking up early. It's time management of knowing when to stop one project and picking up another. It's time management of knowing how to delegate tasks that you know that people might be a lot more adept at doing. And I think another big one is prioritizing, knowing what's important and getting into the habit of not getting caught in the mundane. I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs and people starting in business do. It's that path of least resistance kind of thing again. And then that becomes the habit. How about you? What's up with these good habits in business?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with the time management. I've discovered that for me, like if I don't plan and schedule things, then I'm all over the place. I'm like the dog in Up that's like looking around and is like, squirrel. Yeah, I have this tendency to have like 5 tasks on a list and try to work on all the tasks at once. Ooh. Versus like completing one and then moving on to the next.
Right.
So knowing how to manage your time, plan and schedule everything out, I think helps. Is that a habit you can develop?
Focus? I don't know. That seems like a physiological kind of thing, right?
That may be another show.
Yeah.
Goal setting, I think, is a great habit. Yeah, because if you have goals, measurable, attainable, all those things,
right,
then you can kind of hit those and have smaller goals and larger goals. I think that's a very good habit to have, because then you have a measure.
Yeah.
Self-care. Knowing when to take breaks is a good habit.
Yes.
Because obviously we get very overwhelmed sometimes. My perfect example is yesterday. I had a very interesting overwhelm yesterday. But anyway, I digress. So self-care, knowing when to take breaks, I think is a great habit to develop. And then lastly, being proactive.
Yeah. Right.
Heading off problems before they become an issue. So I think that's also a good habit to kind of think about, especially if you're the boss.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to know what's coming and kind of move in directions before things actually happen.
Yeah.
So for me, those are the main habits. I'm sure there are many, many more that I have yet to develop or know about. I need to model after somebody right away so I know what they're doing and I can become successful.
You know what habit I have?
I think I do, but I'm going to say, what habit do you have, Trey?
I got a habit of sticking a pin in things.
Oh, my.
Yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. You have been listening to The Couple of Entrepreneurs. Please do us and yourself a favor and smash that like and or subscribe button.
Thank you for tuning in. We would love for you to tell your friends and family about our podcast. We are talking about money, entrepreneurship, journeys, family, and apparently pins.
Oh, yeah.
And we're creating the habit of becoming your favorite podcast.
Ooh-wee.
I know, right? So without further ado, Papa. Oh, I do call him Papa sometimes. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Without further ado, Trey. Peace out.